Spoiler warning for any non-manga readers of One Piece, you will be warned.
I warned you to go.
One time, spoiler warning ahead, because I don't want you to start crying to your mom or to your dad or to your wife or to your girlfriend, to your brother, to your sister, whoever the hell.
Everyone!
Because King of Lightning, this big black asshole, actually spoiled you. No. So, fair warning, spoiler warning, because chapter 1030 plus is today's topic. In particular,
get off my lawn.
So you should be gone by now. I'll catch on the flip side for any cats that are doing the manga. Because today's topic is the awakening. So, Trafalgar de Waterloo and Eustace Captain Kido awaken their abilities, or they showcase their awakenings that they apparently already had before. We don't know if Law actually had his awakening in Dressrosa. Some folks made the assumption that was the case and chose not to use it against Doflamingo, which doesn't make any sense. My assumption, I think that characters like Law get stronger over the course of time, just innately. So Law in Dressrosa is weaker than Law at the beginning of Wano Country. That's just my personal assumption that I make. So Kid, when we see him as a silhouette in Punk Hazard, he was actually weaker then than when he was in Wano Country, even though we've never actually seen Kid fight a single time in the post-time skip from that point. So I'm going to assume that in Law's case, he got it relatively recently. That's my assumption. And for Kid, who the hell really knows? But we see their new skills that they use against Big Mom, okay? We have Law's Karoom, the anesthesia, where he actually makes the room, and then he applies the room to his blade. And then, of course, after he stabs Big Mom, which he says the stab itself does relatively no damage, however, it does produce shockwaves from within, and then he does the Shock Willy in the vis-a-vis translation. And after Big Mom takes a pretty sizable amount of damage, that's when the Kid assigns Big Mom magnetism, and then Big Mom gets completely submerged in metal by the Punk Clash. Now, the most important thing we see here with this awakening is not on the part of Law, it's on the part of Kid, actually. Because all Law really does is he applies his room to his own blade. When he does stab Big Mom, it appears that the blade kind of grew inside of Big Mom's body, and then he makes shockwaves inside of her body. And when you think about Law's abilities, the Shock Willy is actually not all that different, I think, compared to, let's say, the Counter Shock or mainly the Gamma Knife, where it does internal organ damage for the most part. And again, in this case, it's shockwaves. Now, to be fair, in the scanlations, before he does initiate the attack, he does say, and I quote, "That incision is harmless, but Karoom influences your body in other ways." So maybe it's not just shockwaves when it comes to Karoom. That's what we get, but it could be more to it in Law's case, where it could be other things he can do, but he didn't have the stamina to actually do it. But what's important here is Kid. For the first time in this whole arc, Kid is actually important. Whoa. My goodness. Kid actually, unironically, proves that when the Paramecia is awakened, their awakening doesn't just apply to inanimate objects, because he does assign Big Mom magnetism. Now, some folks did say when it happened that he actually assigned magnetism to her clothes rather than her herself. But the thing here is that when he does do that, Napoleon is actually stuck to her head. So it's kind of hard to believe that it's actually her clothes rather than her herself. But either way, I'm gonna throw it out there because that's a possibility. I doubt it because it seems to be where, when it comes to the Punk Clash or the Punk Crash in the scans, it seems to be for her herself. This does broaden the scope a lot of what a Paramecia awakening can be and what they could do. Which makes a lot of sense because the Paramecia, when it comes to their abilities, they're all over the place. They're superhuman, supernatural abilities for the most part. So when it comes to what they can do with their awakenings, compared to, let's say, a Zoan, or even in theory a Logia, let's say for example that what we see on Punk Hazard on the case of Aokiji and Akainu, what they did, that given their awakening. But so far, what the Paramecia can do seems to be a little more diverse than the other two groups, arguably speaking. And again, we have to theorize what the Logia can do in terms of their awakening. Now, so far, there seems to be an inconsistency, potentially. I'm gonna say, of course, potentially. Never confirmed, always potentially. You know me, no doubt about that. Because when they say they're gonna use their attacks in chapter 1030, Kid-in-Law specifically say in the Viz Media translation, and I quote, "I'm still not used to it. I'll do it if I'm on my last legs, but the stamina consumption is extreme and it ensures I'll lose the battle." Then Kid responds to Law, "Same's true for me, but we're not getting anywhere like this. Use your last resort to back me up." So, what? The idea would be, okay, once they do their awakening, it wouldn't just be a huff huff wheeze wheeze, and we could do on the fight after Big Mom powers up in the next chapter, 1031. That'll be like the safest assumption based on their comments. And you kind of get that same sense in the scanlations, where in the scanlations he says, and I quote, "I'm not used to using it yet. I only use it if I were near death. It burns too much energy to use in a real battle. Mine's the same, but we're not getting anywhere like this. You'll need to back me up and play that ace." So their awakened ability, unlike Katakuri, unlike Dofi, they're not used to them all. Both Kid and Law, though to be fair, they seem to function a bit differently. In Law's case, it was only for a sword, and for Kid, he actually applied to Big Mom. Whereas Katakuri and Doflamingo, they could affect the entire area around them and do so with ease. Like Dofi and Katakuri, when they do that, they give you hard Logia vibes. Like they really, really do. But after Big Mom powers up by eating her own life force, one of your own life force, they're ready to fight again. Kid literally says in chapter 1031, "Don't hold any strength back as long as you still live. We're gonna bring her down if it kills." Wait! I thought that this was the ace in the hole!
You thought that could hurt me?
No. That was just to get your attention.
Okay, so the stamina thing is weird. It's a safe here we go. It's a safe assumption that they can't use their awakenings at this point in time any longer, but Kid-in-Law could pull out like their Black Clover cards, boom. And then all of a sudden now we can surpass our limits. And even though we said before, hey, we can only go so far with the stamina, actually we still have a little more, gas in the tank. Okay, so let's see how this plays out in the future. But the most important thing here, of course, is Kid. So this, I think, is important looking at Luffy. Why? Because I believe that whether it's a Gear 4 variant, but mainly a Gear 5, Luffy's awakening may come into play. Now, whether it's going to be after this arc or even at the end of the Kaido fight, I think that Luffy may actually achieve some sort of awakening. It was mentioned in SBS 98 when someone asked Oda the question about Gear 5 in a very emphatic way, and Oda talked about Gear 5. And it's been noted before by others, as well as myself, that Luffy's abilities, his own different powers, at the beginning of this arc seem to have improved, because against Urashima, we see him for the first time expand his own arm without blowing into his arm. And remember, Luffy's Devil Fruit was a big subject a few months ago when Who's Who was talking about the Devil Fruit to Jinbei. And around then, I did a video titled like Luffy beats Kaido 1v1. And the idea in the video is that Luffy's getting a host of power-ups that seem to be thematically structured by Oda, where we start off with the Rio Haki, then we have Conqueror's Haki, and then potentially now we may have Awakening. And there's also a theory that's involved here where Vegapunk is actually on one of those marine ships coming in. And Vegapunk is the guy that I said before, he's going to wind up expanding our knowledge of Devil Fruits. And one of the key things here, of course, would be Awakening. So it makes some degree of sense, I think, where at the end, like the tail end of the Kaido fight, Luffy does achieve, or he starts to understand some degree of awakening. And what that could be is not just limited to inanimate objects, but also potentially to Kaido himself. So for example, what if Luffy could actually, for a period of time, rubberify, is that even a word? I have no idea. What if he actually rubberify someone's body as they're attacking? So let's say Kaido goes for a swing of his club, but then Luffy touches the club, and the club actually starts to bend like rubber. Or if Luffy actually touched Kaido's arm, and Kaido's arm actually starts to bend like rubber. That's kind of nuts. Because again, if Kid can assign magnetism to Big Mom, could Luffy assign rubber, not Trojan Man, not condoms, actual rubber, to Kaido. So again, we have to kid some big ups here because now the possibilities have expanded on what could be potential awakenings for not just Luffy, but maybe in the future for Robin, for Brook. The possibilities have expanded twofold now. And when you apply it in a fight, this could actually be a freaking devastating asset for Luffy to use if he could assign someone like Kaido or Big Mom rubber, so it completely throws off their attacks, and their attacks lose so much force. Even a hockey-based attack will lose so much force, in theory. So you have to wonder. You have to wonder. So we did learn something very, very important when it comes to awakening. We definitely did, and Kid is the main reason why. Absolutely. So Kid does get a dub for this one. He does. He does. And hopefully in the future, sooner rather than later, we see what this could mean for Monkey D. Luffy. So, on that note, let me know your stance. Quick little video. Let me know your stance on the subject matter at hand. I'm going to see you cats on the flip side. Be easy. Take care. Have a nice one.